Good day, everyone. My name is Sotanmide Oluwatobi Moses. I am a poet and I love poetry. I love poetry because poetry is imaginative, poetry is beautiful, and poetry inspires. These more are the reasons why I personally caught poetry early as a young man, and to date is my best form of writing. I am in love with poetry. And today I'll be sharing some of the poems I love with you. I'll go on to an African poet, Tade Ipadeola, from his collection of poetry, the Sahara Testaments. I love how he paints the beauty of the Sahara in this collection of poems. And in this particular one, in chapter 1 of his book, the Sahara Testament, we see the fifth stanza there. He wrote there about the desert. You know, the desert is a sea of sand, a sea of dry sand. And you can imagine, standing and looking into furthest distance, kilometers away, and beholding the beauty of this miracle of nature called desert. And here, Tade Ipadeola paints it beauteously. He crafted this reality of nature with words. And I bring the beauty to you. Every robe of this desert is native, and every robe is new. The ancient skin of the vast waste takes captive every color under the sun, and nothing of the night is alien. The jewelry for the desert dance is a trove of stars, silent banners, deep-dyed cavalry of black stumps, whispering love, kindling stifled fires with dry provision, radical notions, sentient ambitions from the late Pleistocene, fearless in the face of extinction, surviving to tell the truths that conquer fate. Beautiful lines about the desert. He told of the desert as if the desert is a human that wears a robe, a uniform robe, a native robe that is always new, because each time the breeze flows over the Sahara, it changes the face of the desert floor, whereby, let's say, some camels or some humans have traveled along that path, say some 30-40 minutes ago, and their imprints is registered on the desert floor or on the sand of the desert. In, let's say, an hour or two afterwards, when the wind keeps blowing over the face of the desert, you will see that it erases that footprint and makes everything new again. So Ipadeola is saying the desert has a robe that is native, and this robe is always new. Beautiful sense, beautiful imagination. Don't forget I said poetry is a test for imaginative sense. It takes a great poet to write that, and if you love poetry, you will see the beauty that was communicated there. Then it says, it talks about the ancient skin of the vast waste takes captive every color under the sun, and nothing of the night is alien. You see that the desert, the horror in the desert is so powerful that it swallows every other conflicting element. You just see desert, and that's it. It's so overwhelming. And that's the picture the poet is painting here. Even if you have not been to the desert area, you can as well draw from this imagery and imagine the sense that the writer is communicating. And that's why I love this so much, because it paints the beauty of nature, the beauty of Sahara here. And here it says, this person that we are talking about, the desert, having done its beauteous robe that is always new, has a jewelry around our neck. And what is this jewelry? It says, the jewelry for the desert dance is a trove of stars. So you can imagine the night fall on the desert space and the stars beaming in the sky. And the poet pays it as the jewelry for the desert dance. You see how imaginative poetry can be. And I appeal to you, or I woo you, you can join in this journey of the poetic. Go out and get a book of poetry, and you may not actually, understand it at the first reading, but if you stay at it and you invest your time into it, gradually you begin to enjoy the beauty of poetry. I have another one here, and it talks about how the desert sings. This is also about the beauty of nature. Here it's about the Sahara Desert. And can you imagine the desert singing, full of symphony and harmonies? But here, the desert is singing. And I read to you, thus the 11th poem in that chapter 1 of the Sahara Testament by Tade Ipadeola. And it's concerning the desert. It says, listen, the desert is singing. Singing, just singing. Listen, it's a duet with the breeze. They are singing an old song full of clinging, just clinging, and its joys as the squeeze in the manner of the elements. Their dance is a raft reaching back to Genesis, where with just mind mingling they entrance the clouds, and every creature sweet is their tan rhapsody, their melodies of old gold, cartwheeling in the sunset, magnificent their display, crowding space with all the awe it owed, riddling the radius of sunset at end of day. Here the poet says that there is a uniform agreement between the breeze and the desert. The breeze and the desert are doing something together. They are singing. You see, when the breeze flows in that kind of space, it howls. It makes some, wonderful sounds. And these sounds that comes with the breeze passing on the desert space, the poet presents as the song of the desert. He says it sings, and it just sings. And he says when we listen, it's a duet between the desert and the breeze. Beauteous language. And also, if you have caught other poems, we have read some poems about birds singing. We've read about some poems that talked about the trees singing. And we hear of the water also singing. The gales of the water as they cascade against the stone. It says they sing also. It hushes. So these are beautiful expressions that poetry presents to you when you really, really stay on them. And I hope you have enjoyed this beautiful aspect of poetry. But beside the beauty that poems can bring to you, beside painting the beauties of nature, but the beauty of daily experiences, the beauty of inventions like the one of Edison, like the one of Night by Longfellow that I mentioned earlier, poetry can also be an instrument of historicity. And in this case, I love poetry. It preserves. Don't forget, I mentioned in my introduction that poetry preserves. So historicity here, it talked about Hannibal of Carthage. And Carthage, as described by Ipadeola, I want to paint it in his words. Say, Carthage is a home of Hannibal and a center of a rival military power to Rome's, situated in what is now Tunisia. So that's the context of this poem, talking about Hannibal in Carthage. So Hannibal was a freedom fighter, I believe, and their rival is a rival military power that were standing or withstanding the ravaging influence of Rome in the damn Roman world. So here we see historicity and we see instruction through poetry. I love this poem because it preserves our wisdom that can be applied to our own time. It reads, in corpulent Carthage, the Senate failed to heed Hannibal's plea to harm merchants and citizens, that Carthage may stand and never fall to greed and or raiding armies of foes or sterile denizens. How that dull assembly mirrors my very own, daily denying lessons from plain to the sight, that every child must learn until they are grown. What builds a people, what maintains their right. So a nation barricaded from within are Barbicans, too timid to seize a willing future by the waist, until the future faded in the dust of caravans, which nomad raiders rode to lay the land to waste. This is a big lesson. Hannibal warned the Senate of Carthage to take heed and harm their merchants and citizens, so that they will not fall victims of the raiding of the Roman army. They failed to heed his warning. And in applying the same historical reality to our own situation, the poet says, the dull assembly, referring to the Senate in the days of Hannibal, mirrors our very own. And here he spoke about the need for education. The weapon against slavery, the weapon against manipulation in today's world is education. The children need to be educated. The citizen needs to be informed, well trained. Their mind needs to be trained to stand for their right and to maintain their right. People need to know. And we could see it's a bane on African scene that we have not so much been investing into education. We have failed so many generations of men because we are not offering quality education. Can you see how through historicity and satire, poetry is painting a reality to us? Aside the beauty that it brings to us, it also tells us about our situation and how we can learn from the past. So here, I think the lesson I can bring out from these lines of poems is that we need to invest more in education of the children. You can imagine the population of out of school children in the south, in the north, in the east, in the west of Nigeria, to situate it within our own immediate context. And the nation seems to be failing in this regard. And I can only hope that we improve on it, the government improve on it. And lastly, one of the poems I love the most is the poem that is also part of this collection, and it's a poem of hope. So here we see poetry, the one I love, not just telling me about beauty, not just telling me about the decadence that is in the society and painting pictures that may not be so palatable to me. But here, poetry does its perfect work of offering hope. And how did he offer hope? Through words. He painted some words on the canvas of time and bid me observe the beauty in those words. And here is actually the last poem in this, the Sahara Testament by Tade Ipadeola. And the opening says, "The world is a den of hope." That line itself is a contradiction in term, because I know a den is full of lions. And you wonder why when you are inside the den of lions, there is hope for you. But it says the world is a den of hope. And that line is actually written by Niro Okewale. So now to Tade Ipadeola's lines. Say, lengthy walk, if it yields nothing beyond sand, let it be far from me. Likewise, meditation, aspiration, and prayer, if they beget but barrenness, let them not tempt near me. But if these sprout within a desert but an oasis, let me dare, let me hope, wielding weary hands and iron peak, to strike spring in a rite of renewal amidst thorns bush, arid seasons, death. Let me find water and quick sources from floundering in the heartsome of Kush. Find me songlines, the ancient paths, the word spoken. Find me gardeners, keepers, planters who sing and tend, nurturers made sensitive to spirit and the unspoken, and afterwards let the grace begin that will never end. This is a beautiful poem of hope written by Tade Ipadeola in the Sahara Testaments. And the poem as a collective offers hope, but with a caution that the truth that is communicated in those lines must be adopted, must be believed upon. You see, it says, lengthy walks, if it yields nothing beyond sand, if it yields nothing beyond deliberation, if it stays at the level of discussion, it says, let it be far from me. Likewise, meditation, aspiration, and prayers, if it begets but barrenness, let them not tempt near me. Tade Ipadeola is saying meditation is good, aspiration is good, prayer is wonderful, deliberation is good, meetings upon meetings, committees upon committees, wonderful, wonderful inventions, wonderful ways to go. But if it brings barrenness, if it does not yield meaningful change that is evident in the lives of the people, then it's a waste of time. And that's the nature of truth. Written truth, spoken truth in whatsoever way truth comes to us, and in this case in form of poetry, we must adopt it, we must internalize it, and it must reflect in our daily lives, in the way we approach life. It says, let them not tent near me. Then, but it now reads again. But if this sprouts within a desert but an oasis, if there is a ray of light, if it stirs something within your conscience, and it helps you to want to make a change, you want that change that you want seen in the space called Nigeria start with you. If it sprouts such a consciousness within you, say, let me dare and let me hope. Truly, if we invest our time in writing the truth, in presenting the truth, and we perceive the slightest ray of light in the life of people around us, I think we can hope. And this is what poetry does. It's a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. And that's one of the, but we all always need that means to an end, because it is the foundation upon which every other thing stands. So poetry as a form of writing, I'll conclude, lives to posterity. Writing is uniquely a very unusual form of art. It preserves, it instructs, it educates. You can imagine that through writing, we've been able to read into the past, dissect the present, and imagine the future. And that is one of the beauty of poetry as a form of writing. And this and more it does to us. So I hope you enjoy my time with you. These are the poems I love, and hopefully one day you will also have time to share with me the poetry and the poems you love. Thank you.